Bonjour, hi. Welcome back to another coffee talk. For those of you who are not familiar with coffee talks, it's a series and a podcast I have where every Friday I sit down with a cup of coffee. I sip on it while I talk about different topics that have been on my mind for the past week. And this week is no exception. I've got myself new glasses, more specifically 4 pairs of glasses. And they are now my personality trait, the main one. They are from the brand called Kits, which is a Vancouver-based brand. This is, by the way, not sponsored. I got them with my own money, but I'm all up for supporting Canadian brands. So I'm happy I got them, and it arrived like super quickly. So I was extra excited. But obviously, and as always, this is not the topic of today's coffee talk. Today, we are talking about the fact that if they wanted to, they would. Yes, we are going there. I'm sorry. We've all heard that before, right? If they wanted to, they would. If he wanted to, he would. More specifically, but it pretty much applies to everyone and anyone. And I have still a lot of difficulty trying to accept that. I recognize it, I realize it, but accepting it has been particularly hard in the past couple of weeks. And the thing is, I know it's true because I do it or I don't do it. So if there's something that I want to do, I'm going to do it. And if there's something I actually don't really feel like doing, then I don't see the point in doing it. And this applies to everything in life. But to me, the way that it's been affecting me the most, it's with, you guessed it, relationships. Yes. I'm a hopeless romantic. We all know that by now. If you didn't know, there you go. Now you do. And so for me, there's this constant need of being liked, of approval, and of getting other people's appreciation. And there's a part of me that feels like I'm always running after someone. I like chasing. And that's the thing. I like it because it gives me a thrill, you know? And when that person actually replies to me or actually wants to hang out with me, it gives me this little rush of dopamine. And this is addictive. And I'm going to be completely transparent with you here. I feel like if I'm not chasing anything or anyone, I'm missing something. Like, I'm missing a purpose. I need a mission. I need to be going after something so I get the reward of it working. And obviously when it doesn't work, I'm so disappointed in myself. But the feeling of actually getting it does something to me. It's pretty toxic. I know. But that's why I decided to sit down today and talk about it. And you might be wondering, how does this have anything to do with if they wanted to, they would? Well, it's because personally, I like controlling things. I like to know the outcome of things. I like having the sense of control over how people feel about me, how people perceive me, how I'm interacting with people. And that's precisely why recognizing, realizing, and accepting the fact that if they wanted to, they would is extremely difficult for me because I can be a people pleaser. And so in my head, when somebody wants me to do something, I'm like, well, if it can make them happy, then I'm going to do it. But at the same time, I'm also very selfish at times. So it truly depends. And truthfully, it pretty much comes from within me. And so it proves my point that when I want to, I do. And when I don't feel like it, I don't. And I don't know why my brain thinks it's not the same for other people. That's how everybody works. Circling back to what I said about being a hopeless romantic, is it makes me fantasize a lot about people and about relationships and about what someone could do for me or what we could become together and what we could accomplish together. But it's all in my head. And having this habit of fantasizing about what can be is really harmful to my little heart because one of two things can happen. The first one being that I get in my head, I fantasize about a person, and then I cling on to that idea, and this is, to me, in my head, this is the person that they are. And so I get like attached quickly, but I don't get attached to that person per se. I get attached to the idea that I made of them in my head. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, which usually happens a little later, is that I get hit by reality and then I realize they're not how I made them up in my head. And then I just get the ick because I'm like, ew. And so either way, it's not good for me because I get all these expectations and I make scenarios in my head and I get disappointed in the end, and I'm back to square one. And it's because I have expectations for other to do things or to be things that they didn't do that. I made them do that in my head, but they didn't do it in reality. And so I fantasize, but then, so don't do that. And so you guessed it, with that whole thing happening in my head, I have expectations for people to act a certain way, to behave a certain way, to say certain things just because that's the way that I would want it to go in my fantasy. But that's not necessarily how it's going to go. Because again, let me repeat it for you. If they wanted to, they would. And you could want something so bad. But that desire, if it comes from you, then only you can do something about it. You cannot expect other people to read your mind and to take actions and to behave a certain way if, one, it comes from here, and if, two, you don't express your needs and thoughts and opinions, and you don't discuss and you don't communicate. And obviously now I'm talking more about romantic relationships, but this goes for any type of relationship. I think we've all had a friend in our life who's been repeating the same stories over and over again, and you're trying to help, but they wouldn't help themselves. And that's exactly it. If they wanted to, they would. There's so much you can do, and there's so much desire that you can have, but it can only go so far, and you're the only one who can do something about it. And this reminds me of something I heard recently, which resonated a lot with me. It also hurt in a way, and that might be the reason why I related with it so much. But it said something along the lines of just let them be. Let life be, because we lose so much time and energy and focus on wanting to control everything, on wanting to control the way that people behave, on wanting to control the way that people speak, on wanting to control the outcome, and wanting to control just every little aspect of life, that it is so demanding, it is so energy consuming, and we could use that energy towards something that we can actually control. And that's it. And this kind of brings me back to what I said in last week's episode where I talked about resilience and how resisting life is just very harmful because, as cheesy as it may sound, things happen for a reason and people behave in a certain way for a reason, and you cannot control what they do. The only things you can control is what you do, is how you see life, is how you approach things and how you choose to handle situations, but you cannot have all these expectations for other people. And I know it's hard because personally I have these expectations for myself. I have these standards for myself, and I kind of want other people to reciprocate that and to replicate that and to be up there with me. But sometimes it doesn't go that way. And obviously there are exceptions when somebody would want to do something with you, but they don't have the time. Like, that's an actual valid excuse. Time being a really important resource. Sometimes we're all out of time, and we can't just make time. It's one of my personal biggest enemy. But it's all about how you cope with the situation. Let's say you're planning on hanging out with somebody. They don't have time. Are they actually planning on rescheduling? Are they taking a rain check, or are they just canceling? And that's subtle, but that's the difference, because they want to. So they're planning on doing it just later. And this happens to the best of us, right? We've all been there. We've all been in a situation where we didn't feel like it, or we didn't have time, or we didn't have the energy. And I used to be the kind of person who would make up excuses in order to avoid uncomfortable conversations. I didn't want to disappoint. I didn't want to make anybody frustrated or sad. And so I would make up excuses for not showing up to something, for example. But now I would rather be straight with someone and tell them, you know what? Thank you, but I don't feel like it. Or I don't have the time, but I would love to reschedule. Or I don't have the energy. Can we do something else? And that's the way that I like to approach things. But again, I cannot expect that from everyone. Not everyone thinks the way that I do. And I'm happy if that's the case. But if it's not, I cannot control it. And so I'm putting myself out there. I'm putting the best intentions out there. And I'm one to believe in karma, but at the same time, even though I have standards for myself, I cannot expect the same from other people. And it all comes down to what I've been saying for the past 10 minutes. Because in the end, we're all busy. We all have our lives. There's only 24 hours in a day. And what matters is how we choose to spend that time. And the people that we want to spend that time with. And the things we want to do while this time passes. Yeah. That was very deep. You're welcome. But hey, what do I know? Because this is literally just me and my thoughts in my bedroom with a camera, a microphone, a cup of coffee. So, I'm not the most credible person at the moment, but this is the way that I see it. So remember that if they wanted to, they would. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you for watching or listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me. I truly, 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 truly mean it. Hopefully I have made a little difference in your day today. If you would like to make a difference in mine, you know what to do. I'm going to wish you bonne journée.